welcome back to Plants with Ms.Probst. We are redoing and cleaning up this crazy looking succulent planter. Now with succulents, what you can do is cut them up and replant the parts that you like and propagate the parts that you don't need right now. So that's kind of what we're gonna do. And also just clean it up because there's a lot of dead leaves in here, because if you don't propagate them, they will just die if they just fall off of the plant. So we're gonna get all these sticks and random things out of here. These are actually flowered from the succulents, but these have since died. They are very dry. So, and I kind of kept them because I like the way that they looked. But if we want this pot of succulents to live, we need to get rid of the dead pieces and clear it up. So I will have a trash bucket, which is the trash bucket from before, and I will have a propagation bucket, which is going to be any leaves that fall off that are still good enough to propagate and turn into new plants, and that's just going to be the leftover buckets from repotting my new plants, and everything else I'm just going to kind of throw away. All right, so what we have here is a lot of succulents that we're reaching towards the sun, so we end up with a really long, tall succulents. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna snip right here, and I know that seems crazy, but I promise you I'm not killing it. I'm actually going to replant some of these leaves, so I'll pop them off and put them in my save bucket so that I can propagate them into new plants. All right, I'm actually gonna trim it up just a little bit. I only need about 1 inch. 1. Now these ones went absolutely crazy. They tend to do that. This is maybe the 4th or 5th time that I've cut just these plants, because these ones just love to spiral out of control when you're not paying attention. For like this one, I'm going to keep a little bit tall because I do like it to kind of go up, but this one's like making a huge roller coaster. I'll find the base so I can show you what it looks like. I can actually just try to gently rip it from the pot because I don't want the roots too much. That was all that one plant that I just cut off, and it did make a little baby plant, so I'm going to snip that and replant it. No point in throwing that one away. But I am going to throw the rest of this away. Maybe save those leaves. And this is the 3rd one of the same kind that went crazy. Now this one I won't cut first. I'm just going to show you. Look at how big that is. It just kept growing, and as it got taller, it didn't have enough water to supply nutrients to all the leaves, so it just got rid of all the leaves except for the ones at the very top. This one went a little bit nuts too. And what's funny is that it spent so much of its energy doing those 2 long flowering things like I showed you that basically the rest of it has since died. And it looks like maybe there was a small snake that shed its skin in here, so I'm going to be very careful. That's exciting. It worked so hard on getting those 2 really tall flowering parts up that the actual main plant, it got very, very skinny. So that's what I was saying, how you can lose a succulent that way because you like the way that the flowers look, but you don't actually care about the plant too much. So like I'm gonna cut right here. I'm gonna replant it and hopefully it'll get nice and fat like this again in the future. But then hopefully that'll save this plant. This is the last one that I have of this kind, so I really don't want it to die out. Now what's interesting is some of these leaves actually propagated themselves. So there are baby succulents in here. So I'm gonna save them because I want to plant all the baby succulents that I propagated into the same plant or pot. So these are really interesting because this is obviously the mother plant and it's doing really well. And you can see when this plant actually started growing this one, because it started out like this, went skinny, skinny, skinny. So obviously when it's really this skinny, this started, but I couldn't see it. And then once it started getting fatter, it was building both this one and this one, and it remained pretty thick the whole time. So I'm a little bit nervous about cutting this one just because this one's doing so good. It needs a little bit of a clean like I did with my new tree, but wow, these are awesome. I'm gonna preserve both of them so that I can replant it in here. Wow, that's amazing. Plants are, that's why I love plants so much. They're just so crazy. All right, this one's so pretty. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna set this over there. So these ones I didn't take out just because I didn't want to. I mean, this one I can take out, but there we go, because it was very loosely put in. Haven't yet really rooted too much, but this one obviously rooted a lot because it's doing really well. So I'm gonna leave that one in and just kind of plant around it and add soil. Now this soil has a lot of the dead leaves in it, which is good because those provide nutrition for the succulents. So I'm gonna leave some dead leaves, I'm gonna add new soil, I'm gonna add some new fertilizer just so it can get some plant food. And that should be good. And then we're gonna start putting in these succulents. Succulents need their own special soil, which is why I have this garden soil for citrus, palms, and cactus, because succulents are a part of the cactus family. I'm gonna take my nice big scooper trowel and add nice new soil to the top, because I did lose some by taking out the old plants. All right, that looks pretty good. Now this soil is a little bit wet. For right now, I don't actually want to water my new succulents until about a week, because what happens after we do this is that the succulents, in just being dry and maybe a little bit moist, are going to close up basically the cuts that I made. Like this one's already dried up a lot. It's gonna dry up there, and then it's gonna start shooting new roots down the bottom. So we won't see much change with the succulents for the first couple of weeks because they're still making new roots to adapt. So basically I'm just gonna start with the big ones and just kind of stab them in where I think they look good. So I'm gonna start with the biggest one, my big beauty here, and I'm gonna kind of put it, I need to get rid of some of the leaves or else it's not gonna fit. I'm definitely gonna propagate these though, because I want more of this plant. That looks better. So I'm just gonna kind of stab it in there. I loosened up the soil, so stabbing it in there is actually quite sufficient. And then these new ones that I got, like I did with all the other ones, I'm gonna take out the dead pieces so that I can focus on the ones that are alive and growing. Massage the soil until it's nice and loose like it is right now. No point in potting it while it's all dense. Just kind of sprinkling the dirt because this is free dirt. All right, now it's nice and loose, so I can just kind of make a hole where I want it. Because that takes up more space, I'm gonna do my other new one also. All right, now for the rest, like I said, with the first one, the biggest one that I had, you can just kind of stab them in. So that's what I'm gonna do. Here we have the final product. We have a lot of succulents in a little bit of an area, but they're all kind of scattered around, so there's not all right next to each other if they're the same kind of succulent. And I'm gonna leave it in dry soil for about a day. So tomorrow I'm gonna come water it real nice, give it a good shower. That way the roots can start forming. The ends will be all dried up and calloused, which just means that they're smooth rather than being cut the way they are now. And then they're going to start sprouting roots and growing in this new soil that I added and the soil that was there before. And I'm going to feed it tomorrow with some fertilizer when I water it. Now I'm going to use all the really tiny ones and the ones over from my propagating corner to put them in here. And I'm going to put new soil at the top of this, and I'm going to plant all of these on top so they can start growing into bigger succulents. So in this new fresh pot, I'm going to take all of my smaller succulents that I cut and just kind of stab them in just like I was in the other one. All right, and I have a tiny little succulent garden. All right, and one last thing before we go, we want to make sure that these are laid out to propagate. It's good to turn the soil just to make sure that It doesn't sit in the same spot forever. Actually helps with growing things because you're rotating the nutrients, because when you water things, the nutrients tend to sit at the bottom. And when you turn your soil, you're basically taking the nutrients from the bottom and putting them back on the top and in the middle where they are more helpful. And lay out the propagations that we just took. Give them a good mist. All done. I will see you next week. Bye.